Here is something I have watched happen more than once, and it follows the same pattern every time. A company runs a successful AI pilot. Small team, clear scope, real results. They save time, they reduce errors, something measurable improves. Leadership sees the numbers and does what leadership always does when numbers look good. They scale it. They push it wider. They hand it to more departments, add more use cases, increase the budget. And then, quietly, it stops working. Not dramatically, not in a way that shows up clearly in a dashboard. It just slows down. The gains flatten. The complaints start. People work around the system instead of with it. The pilot that looked like a breakthrough turns into a project that nobody wants to own. I have seen this in insurance companies, accounting firms, medical clinics, businesses that were genuinely serious about AI, businesses with real budgets and real intention. And almost every time, they hit the same wall without understanding why. That wall has a name, and most companies do not know it exists until they have already walked into it. By the way, what you are looking at is an AI clone. This is intentional. I am Ronald, founder of Data Wonder, and we use AI in our actual daily work, building automation systems and voice agents for businesses in insurance, accounting, and healthcare. This channel exists because most AI content does not reflect what actually happens inside companies. We try to fix that. If that sounds like something you want more of, subscribe. No hype here, just what we observe. The assumption most companies operate under is that AI adoption is a straight line. You identify a use case, you build or buy the solution, you deploy it, and then you keep going. Rinse and repeat. More use cases, more efficiency, more ROI. Linear progress. That is not what happens. What actually happens is that AI adoption follows a curve. And somewhere on that curve, there is a point where the organization's ability to absorb change becomes the limiting factor. Not the technology, not the budget, not the tools. The technology can scale infinitely. The organization cannot. Think about what actually changes when you deploy AI across a company. You are not just adding software. You are changing how decisions get made. You are changing who owns which outputs. You are changing accountability structures that have been in place for years. You are creating new data flows that nobody fully mapped before deployment. You are asking people to trust outputs they cannot verify with their own experience. That is a lot of organizational stress, and it accumulates. In the early stages in that successful pilot phase, the stress is manageable. The scope is small. The team is motivated. There is a clear owner. Expectations are aligned. That is why pilots work. Scaling removes all of those conditions simultaneously. Suddenly, there is no single owner. There is a steering committee. Expectations are no longer aligned. They are competing. The motivated pilot team hands off to departments that were never consulted during design. And the data flows that worked cleanly in a controlled environment now run into legacy systems, inconsistent inputs, and processes that were never actually documented anywhere. Does any of this sound familiar? Because if you have been inside a company during an AI rollout, you have probably felt this. You just might not have had a name for it. Here's what I want you to hold on to, because I will come back to this later. The breaking point is not when the technology fails. It is when the organizational tissue tears. But I also want to be honest. There is something underneath this that is even more uncomfortable, and I will get to it. First, let me show you what the breaking point looks like in practice, because it rarely announces itself. In one insurance company I worked with, they had successfully automated their first-line client communication. Response times dropped, volume was handled cleanly, the team was relieved. Then they expanded, added a second department, a third use case, a fourth integration. Within 6 months, nobody agreed on who was responsible for the AI's outputs when something went wrong. The compliance team had not been involved in the expansion decisions. The data feeding the new integrations was inconsistent across departments, and the people closest to the work, the ones who actually knew the process, had stopped trusting the system because it had made errors they could not explain. The technology was fine. The deployment was fine. The organization had simply moved faster than it could absorb. And here is what made it worse. Leadership saw the slowdown as a technology problem. They started looking at different vendors. They started debating switching platforms. Meanwhile, the actual issue, fragmented ownership and misaligned expectations, was still completely intact. If the thinking is that you can solve an organizational failure with a better tool, you will spend a lot of money staying in the same place. This is the pattern I mentioned at the start. This is the wall. If you recognize this in your own company, drop a comment below. I am genuinely curious how many people are watching this mid-deployment right now. And if this is useful, a like helps the algorithm understand that. Now here is the part that most people do not see coming. The breaking point is not just a problem, it is actually information. When AI adoption stalls, when the games flatten, when the complaints start, that is the organization telling you something specific. It is telling you exactly where the friction lives. It is showing you which processes were never properly owned, which accountability structures were vague before AI made them visible, which data was never clean enough to act on. AI did not create those problems, it revealed them. This is the second-order effect, and it is the one that matters most. Before AI, those problems were invisible, or at least ignorable. Decisions were made by humans who compensated for bad data with judgment. Accountability was blurry, but the blurriness was distributed and familiar, so nobody noticed. When something went wrong, it was resolved informally, through relationships and contexts that lived in people's heads. AI cannot compensate for bad data with judgment. AI cannot navigate blurry accountability informally. AI does not know the unwritten context. It only knows what it was given. So when you put AI into a real organizational environment, you are essentially running a diagnostic on the organization itself. The places where it struggles are the places where the organization was already weak. The breaking point is the organizational fault line made visible. This reframes the entire conversation. The companies that recover from the breaking point, and some do, aren't the ones who fix the AI. They are the ones who look at what the AI exposed and fix that. They tighten ownership. They clean up the data. They bring compliance into the process before deployment, not after. They slow the rollout enough to let the organization actually absorb what is happening. And when they do that, when they treat the breaking point as a diagnostic instead of a failure, the second round of deployment works significantly better, because now the organizational tissue is actually prepared. The companies that do not recover, they keep looking at the tool. They switch vendors. They hire different consultants. They run another pilot. And eventually the budget runs out, and someone in leadership declares AI a disappointment. But it was never. Here is the calm version of all of this. AI adoption has a breaking point. Most companies hit it. Most companies misdiagnose it. They see a technology failure when they are actually experiencing an organizational stress fracture. The honest response is not to fix the AI, it is to use what the AI revealed to build a stronger organizational foundation, and then try again with better conditions. The companies that understand this will build compounding advantages over time, not because they have better technology, but because they have a healthier organization underneath it. The ones that do not will keep wondering why the pilot worked and everything after it did not. That is not a technology question. It never was. If what I described today maps onto something you are navigating in your own company, the stalled deployment, the unclear ownership, the complaints that nobody can quite explain, and you want to work through it properly, you can book a free call with me. The link is right below this video.